saying that nobody in the stupid world could have been that dumb unless they meant it. I had heard the 767 when it hit tower number 1 like a fly swatter. And when we saw the magnitude of smoke and flame, we knew it would not stand. We knew it was a gin someone had unwittingly let loose. Not that kind of party. It could have been a holiday with all the sirens going off, like the strident horns of revelers, making their gaudy way through the city. The burning ash and bits of steel made molten, raining down on the canyon of heroes like confetti, airline tickets, faxes, bodies, billowing smoke as from a giant bonfire. Pretty soon there were the F-16s, the predictable border closures. And when we heard about the Pentagon, the other planes being down, we knew that even the impossible had become predictable. A whole Pentagon had become a quadrangle. Immigrants. Michael, the crippled Greek who sits downstairs in his wheelchair, told me a story about World War II. I was 4 years old, and the Germans were bombing Salonika. I thought it was a game. I was having fun. This was nothing like that. This was just 2 planes and commercial flights. The Germans sent wave after wave of Messerschmitts over my small island, and they were built for war. They dropped bombs everywhere. My mother was so terrified, every time they made a pass, she hid me under the table, and when that wouldn't work, she would shamelessly hide me under her dress, not far from where we were hiding. 2 families of Jews my family had agreed to guide to our border with Bulgaria. I don't know what these people are doing. All I could think of was God and my dog. Later that night, we heard the rumor of terrorists coming over the bridges with more explosives, murmurs of police justice. Speech. We live in the quarantine section of the city. From 3rd Street, we look south to Houston, where we can see the parade of emergency vehicles making their way east to the drive, the barricade south of the thoroughfare. At the little kiosk on the corner, the proprietor says he has no ice for the orange juice. Looking southwest past the barriers, I tell them, that's all right, Leo. We have our lives. Over the one channel we have left to us, the mayor says everything is under control. Take the day off. Go shopping. Relax. In spite of the fact most of the shops in our little neighborhood remain shuttered. The president gives a dark speech saying though our enemies hide in the shadows, they will never impede our way of life. In spite of these faceless cowards, there will be business as usual. We had been upwind of the odor of burnt iron that smelled like cordite from a punishing barrage of gunfire, but now the wind had shifted. It wafted over us like a tent. Day 3. Earlier this spring, a financier wanted to sue a hotel in the Caribbean for having sharks. Last November, the voting machines wouldn't work. That morning, it was stuck again. The day before, I had imagined I had heard a newscaster announcing a huge earthquake in L.A. before the weatherman announced the rain. Michael the Greek said it wouldn't rain, and there had been no earthquake. Though the airports are still closed tonight, the airports are still closed. They opened briefly today and closed like a Venus flytrap after some suspect had been detained. The president of the last administration says this will present a wider window for our policy in the Middle East. The beneficiary of the last election says he will be here tomorrow. see to it it has the necessary hardware. Without the usual traffic, the streets are ghostly, as if 5,000 souls flew there. Day 3 and night. Against the background of sirens, which in this city should not be unusual, silence has its surliness punctuated by snapping flags, booted construction workers. In this block at least, things still go up. Michael the Greek still sits in his wheelchair, drinking his beer. Grinning Larry, though chagrined he can't leave the neighborhood, still needs his 6 bits, he says, is for coffee, though a young girl, quite possibly a co-ed, passes back and forth across the avenue, stockpiling water like a spider weaving her web. The President of our Republic says he has taken the appropriate action. He's had our client states all around the world make ready, which should be assuring. There have been more arrests. The whole world is lined up behind him. He warns that this should include us all. Tomorrow, when he visits, there will be more frozen zones. Meanwhile, we should all pray, ask God to help us. Agni, smiling. Agni being the Hindu fire god. As a chess player, our new president is a bold man. His latest proposal is to move us straight to the center of the board. Eyeing the Indian subcontinent with a gaze like Bonaparte, he considers Kathmandu the high ground. Elephants have been this way. He likes snow. Leopards never change their spots. Placing his back suddenly against Delhi like a crook, like a rook, he has his knights crusade. He has always loved castles. Karachi is a pawn. Carefully studying his map and his manuals, he says, gee, you know, these Indians invented chess. He has sent his bishop to Karachi. He wants us to know he is a G-man. He reminds us there is plenty of yak butter in the Himalayas. He will slalom down out of these mountains like lightning, like an avalanche into the First World War of the 21st century. Calming the animals, reading their score, the Secretary of State asked, before you can say Jack Robinson, for your information. At ground zero, in preparation for the President's visit, the looting has begun. Petty stuff, a few watches, rings, scavengers from the Department of Correction, jackals, crows, a curious seagull. The eagle will land soon. The mayor, having barely escaped the implosion of his life, unflappable as ever, wants to know who this guy Agni is, warns the populace to stow all this talk about box cutters. Approximate dawn. This day approximates dawn, color of battleships, color of gunmetal, and fighter planes. This day, the 14th of September, has been declared a day of national mourning. 200 miles to the south, the toll of bells from the National Cathedral, low moan of the shofar from the temple. Massed against the stench of the still burning rubble, appearing larger than life itself, surrounded by gulls startled by the overflight of fighters and the intrusion of Secret Servicemen, the President, characteristically hyperbolic, announces his intent to rid the world of evil. He declares himself king of the hill of twisted steel that had been the envy of Babylon. Rocks in hard places. Having knocked out the transmitter atop the northern tower, WKCR has been off the air for days. It would seem Omar bin Laden does not like jazz either. Nobody is playing football. There will be no middleweight championship fight, no baseball. Nobody cares who has no arm unless it is a victim or where offense is concerned, who's at bat against whose knuckleball, whose curve. Suddenly, everyone is a Yankee. High above the iron crosses decorating the headquarters of the local outlaw biker club, someone has spread a gigantic flag across the thoroughfare. Even the White House is draped in black. Child, when I called you, you told me you had been on Long Island. You asked me if that was okay. I told you it was not. When I called you back, you had ID'd me with your smart machine. I am like Lao Kun. You are my child. You had always been afraid of the sea. Lao Kun having been the blind prophet who warned the Trojans against letting in the Trojan horse in Italy, and was drowned. Was himself, Poseidon drowned Lao Kun and his sons. Nightmare, according to Lao Kun and Steven Spielberg. The U.S. is the most powerful country in the world. George Bush has somehow become president. Under our Constitution, this makes him the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. George is all smiles, like howdy doody. His national security advisor is Princess Summer, Winter, Spring, Fall. Borrowing from other cartoons, he makes Mortimer Snurd his deputy. Ever the salesman, pitching an electronic game called Doom, in which he is codenamed Alex, he plays golf with the budget. Teeing off, he has forgotten the rules. Doom is a violent game, like a high school shooting. There are terrorists in it that blow up the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. There's a war between Tonto and the Lone Ranger. George is a cute baby. He is bigger than the world, dwarfing both Babe, the Blue Ox, and Paul Bunyan. I am Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. For reasons of national security, George has been cloned. My daughter wakes me up. It was not a pretty picture. All the Georges had wagged big dogs recast as dragons. All of them kept saying, "This will pick you up," like it was a drink. They were lying and lying. It was not a drink, and when it was, it had wormwood in it. The worst thing was not being able to tell where all the bodies had come from. The one bright spot was in a corner of the screen, like the sun, though there was always hope that in the afterlife, somewhere beyond the sun, people would have learned to get along much better without sex, because that was what had been attractive about all those Georges. They were certainly sexy, nicknamed cute babies. Survivors. My sculptor friend has just informed me my dancer friend, who when the rent has to be paid, caters like a mother, and needing what euphemistically might be called the bread, happened to have trade that day at the very epicenter of the disaster. My dancer friend, who besides being very lucky, is also a choreographer, always concerned about her health, and as a choreographer, loves to fly more than anything. He said she flew out of there past the initial hysteria like a missile. My friend, the choreographer, is very fast and knows pretty much how to get people to do pretty much what she wants them to do. On that occasion, she made them move out of her way. She made steps all the way from you-know-where, like a frightened deer, had once seen leaping over a campfire the more than a mile to her precious Lower East Side, East Village apartment in under 15 minutes, she'd swear. My sculptor friend once fell off a building. My painter friend said his sister saw the leapers, their hands joined like paper dolls. Hell. The task of sorting out all the body parts from the general remains is grim, if not impossible. The collapse of the twin buildings on themselves, making the site a clay oven. Rescue workers trained for this know a worst-case scenario when they see one. Whatever liquids used to contain the still smoldering fires, adding pockets of steam to the lingering toxic smoke the workers hold their breath against, retreat from, and go back to, like the persistent gulls hovering on the periphery of the rising heat, lowering themselves in on their white wings whenever possible to grab something and heavily rise. Cranes, caterpillars, scuttlebutt. If God had given camels wings, those jockeys would have really dropped some shit on us. The president was really nice to have visited and to have given the city $20 whole billion American. Members of the board of elections were told to leave so fast, some folks might have gotten lost. Behind the barriers, the mayor appeared perennial, like Fiorello. Kabul is so used to bombs, over there they call them rains. Soldiers invading Afghanistan tend to become heroin addicts. There is a strong relationship between morphine and the Khyber Pass. If you're not with us, you're against us. That's because of our pluralistic form of government. The Attorney General sounds like John Wayne. Bring back Elian Gonzalez. Baseball has returned to the free world. John Wayne is a good person to imitate in these times. The man is folks. Who let the dogs out? That was written from the I've begun to write the speech from the moment of impact, and I've been writing it today, the 15th, the 18th of September, and I've been writing these from the 11th, and I believe I'm finished, but depends on how much we go. I'm Jen Ferris. Thank you.